Hey y'all, Fat Man Outdoors. Hey, if you liked the video, click that like button and click subscribe so that you'll get notifications whenever we post new content. Appreciate you watching. This is the Fat Man. I'm gone. Hey y'all, Fat Man Outdoors. I just wanted to touch on something real quick, make it a little short video as part of this HWM 357 Magnum series. A lot of people don't understand about how the cylinder and the bore on a revolver works. You actually have three parts to your chamber on a revolver. You have the chamber itself, which is just a straight hole that is the diameter of the outside of the case. Then just past that you have a chamber throat, which is usually 1 to 2 thousandths tighter than the case. And that will begin the initial pressure seal and to form the bullet, cause the bullet to begin to obturate as it comes out of the cylinder. And then after it passes through that, the front half of it will come in contact with the beginning of the barrel. And in the beginning of the barrel, the first thing that it comes in contact with is the thing that's called the forcing cone, and it's right up in this front end of the barrel where the bullet first goes in. And what that does is it begins to form the bullet down to the size to fit the bore, and the bullet will begin to obturate and make a pressure seal and get that initial jump to push the bullet on down the barrel and towards your target. So back in the day, back when the development of revolvers was still in its infancy, the chambers on revolvers were straight. If it was a 358 thousandths chamber, that's what it was from the beginning to the end. There was no throat. Now, if it's a 358 thousandths chamber, it's usually about a 357, around in there somewhere. If you get one that's much above 358 or one that's far tighter than a 358, don't buy that revolver. I don't know, I mean, if you can get a guy to take a chamber and or a caliper and measure that for you, it's worth checking. But in the event that you do buy it, that the guy didn't let you, nobody would let you check it, and you bought one, there is a way to remedy that. You need to make sure that you resize your bullets to fit the throat. You want it 1/1000th, at the most 2 thousandths bigger than the throat. It's best to have it to where you can push it through the throat with not very much pressure, 3 or 4 pounds of pressure, and you can push it right through. You don't want it to drop through. You don't want it to be a straight line. You want it to have a little bit of catch to it, so that it'll kind of straighten everything out on your bullet after it leaves the case, especially if you're shooting 38s in a 357, because you have a place for a bullet jump. There's no case, and it hasn't quite reached the throat of the chamber yet. So, and I'll show you what I mean on 2 rounds out here, dummy rounds that I've got loaded. If you can see that, we'll even them up on the end. Alright, and now you can see there's about 1/8 of an inch difference in length, and those are loaded with the same size bullet, so you can see the difference. Okay, and that's got them evened out, and that's the same size bullet, and the difference in the 357 versus the 38. Okay, so but what you got to do is you got to make sure that when you push your bullet down on the 38, that you're making sure that you measure your overall length from the tip of the bullet to the back of the case. But when you got them down to where they're sized right, okay, you're going to get, it's going to drop right in, it's going to go all the way in, and it's going to drop right out. You see how that goes in? Just drop right in, drop right out. And you need to check it on every cylinder. Drop right in, drop right out. Drop right in, drop right out. And that's 357. So you know if they're going to do that, they're doing good. Now what I did with this one, this is in a 38 special cartridge. Sorry about that. 357 measures at 1.59. Let me get it settled here. 1.5895. The maximum length is 1.590. Okay. Then on the 38, I've got it at 1.55. That is the maximum length. Now you could push it down there a little bit farther if you wanted. I probably wouldn't do that, just because I believe the farther you get down in there, the more pressure you're going to end up having some issues with, and I probably wouldn't do that. But like I said, you can take either one of them. You can drop them in, that's the 38, drop them right out in any cylinder. Now, the weird thing about this is, now if I take this caliper and it's zeroed out and I measure the inside of this throat, this throat's going to say 357. Okay, now if I measure one of these bullets, it's going to say 358. Okay, now when you load these, especially if you're powder coating with cast lead bullets, you might have some small variations. Let me see if I can't find one real quick. I don't want to keep you all long or bore you to death. Yeah, that one's 358. Okay, well anyway, when you run your bullets through the last die that you're going to use in reloading the 357s, and I swear, guys, don't turn your nose up to them because they're the cheapest people on the market. Lee dies are awesome, okay, but if you don't like any of their dies, you still have to like the factory crimp die. That factory crimp die will take out any bulges and it'll pull everything down. It will compress everything, take out any lumps where you was putting the bullet in, or if you got a little bit of extra bulk in the lead in one spot or something, it will pull everything down through that carbide die so that it's within SAMI spec. And by what I mean by SAMI spec, you're going to get this out of every chamber that is SAMI approved, no matter what gun it's in. That gun will that ammo will function in any 357 Magnum, but it will not function in a 38 Special. Now the 38 Special will function in the 357 Magnum or the 38 Special. You can go shorter and use like a 38 long Colt or a 38 short. You can do that, but you can't go up. I've never seen a 357 that would close in a 38 chamber. I wouldn't think that there's anything allowed to be built that way, but just please check it. If it says 38 Special on you, if it does not say 357 Magnum on the gun and on the cylinder, don't put 357 ammo in it. Now, there's a drawback to shooting this 38 ammo, and the reason being is you've got bullet jump, okay? Now, you won't be able to see it real well, I don't think. I'll try to get it up there where it'll be in focus, I hope. But if you notice that one bullet is farther back in that cylinder than the other one, okay? And that is the one on this cylinder is the 38. The one on this cylinder, on this side, is a 357. And the reason it looks shorter is because it is. It's about 1/8 of an inch farther back in the cylinder. So you've got a space there that's from the end of the case until the throat of the cylinder, which is about 1/8 of an inch, that there's nothing there. So that bullet is actually going to fit loose in the chamber till it gets into the throat. So it may you may see some leading when you're shooting 38s through your 357 Magnum. But there is a fairly easy way and a pretty cool way, I think, to do it, to take care of that problem. What you can do is get you some good copper jacketed 357s. Take 6 with you. When you get ready to end your shooting range, just use the cheap ones, aluminum case stuff or whatever cheaper stuff you can get, as long as it's got a jacket on it. And just fire some 357s, one through each cylinder, and that'll knock the majority of that leading out. Okay, but any leading that you're going to get past your forcing cone, that's pretty easy to take care of. Take some COP, put it in there and let it soak for about 5 minutes. Put a brass brush that's the next size above the 358, which you can use a 40 caliber brush and put it in a drill and about 10 seconds in the barrel, and it'll knock it all out. And if there's any left in your chambers of your cylinder, about 10 seconds each chamber, polish right up, won't hurt a thing. You're not going to hurt that metal with that brass brush. But guys, I just wanted to show you this, to show you that we're right there. This is where we're going to be at. That's our bullet length for the 38s. Is going to be 1.550, and for the 357 is going to be 1.590. We're going to try to keep them all right there, and that's the difference you're going to see in the same bullet being loaded, so you can tell how much bullet could have still been pushed down in the case in that 38. But that's the difference in the case length. You can see it real good on those. That's the exact same bullet that's in both loads, but there's about 1/8 of an inch difference on how deep one bullet is seated in the case. This one is at 159, this one is at 155. Well guys, I didn't want to keep you too long. A little short video, just wanted to give you an explanation of the what, which is the question that's been asked is, what is the throat on a revolver? That is the very last section. You look down in your chamber and you'll see a line down in there. That's the what. Past that line to the end of the cylinder, that's your throat. What? Okay, that's the what. When does it come in contact? When is it used? When the bullet leaves the chamber, that is the first constriction that it goes through, is that throat, and that will begin to the obturation of the bullet. It'll begin to straighten its flight path and get it lined up to go into the forcing cone. Why? Because if it did not, if you loaded this cylinder with a bullet that was and it stayed a 358, and your forcing cone is a 357, then or 356, you're going to be putting a lot of pressure on that forcing cone, and you're probably going to have some leading, because it's going to come out of the forcing cone before it operates to get to the rifling, and you're going to have some gases get by. It is believed that the Russians are the ones who came up with this. I'm sorry, no, it wasn't an American invention. The Russians are the ones who figured out to put the throat in, and the reason that they did that is because they had the Dragunov revolver that was actually a single action pistol. When you cocked the hammer, the cylinder would slide forward and make a seal between the end of the chamber of the cylinder and the forcing cone on the barrel, and they wanted to get away from that because it was a mechanism that was doomed for failure, because it was just too complicated. So that's what they came up with, was the throat, and then sending from the throat into the forcing cone. And how it goes through, it constricts it, it lines it up, and it gets it ready to go into the forcing cone before it hits the rifling of the barrel. And that helps with accuracy, and it also helps with leading, because back in the day when this come up with, I'm going to say that leading was a big problem, because there wasn't a lot of folks that had the ability to reload, that could make their own bullets, that could come up with the stuff they needed to harden bullets the way it needed to be and get their BHN up to where it needed to be. So I'd say folks did a lot of lead cleaning back in them days. And I'd say back in them days it wasn't easy, because you didn't have a lot of stuff we have now. But that's it, guys. I just wanted to show you what I was talking about, what a lot of people had asked the questions about. What was the throat in the chambers of a revolver? And there's the answer. We'll see you in the next video and show you what we're doing to put these together and show you the finished product. This is part 6 of the HWM 357 Magnum 38 Special. It's a Fat Man. I'm gone.